What is interesting about this interview is, firstly, why we chose game is because I learnt it from Sandeep in my early years.
I love playing games. Okay, the most complex game is life. You don't dance with the partner, you dance for the partner. So you should be able to gauge that mood of that person who you are dancing with, and that is how the magic happens.
काफी homework किया है, काफी. In one sentence, 10 years of Make in India.
I think it has led to a huge amount of financial inclusion, which biggest of pundits could not have predicted 10 years back.
The printing of dollar is seen as a very positive interpretation of bringing liquidity to the markets.
Too much money will create inflation because there's too much money chasing too few goods.
In 2003, speaking about कि कोई मुझे सब प्राइम बेचने आया था और उसको लगा कि मुझे बेच के जाऊंगा, मैं भी बागला हूँ. I remember that. I win. Hi, I'm Jyoti Rai and you're watching EtherWire podcast series called Enigma India, Playbook of Sandeep Bagla, Global Macros. What we just saw was a tic-tac-toe old-fashioned game, which of course Sandeep beaten me, red and blue. I think that was the color of our pens. What is interesting about this interview is, firstly, why we chose game is because I learnt it from Sandeep in my early years of working with him to fundraise for him, that Jyoti, don't take life so seriously because no one gets out alive. So since then, whenever we meet, whenever we have a difficult or a complex conversation, we take a game approach. Welcome and thanks for joining me for this fantastic, unique episodes, Global Macros with Sandeep Bagla. Let's find out from his playbook. Sandeep is the CEO of Trust Mutual Fund and a very reputed personality in the asset management industry. We'll take a peek into what makes Sandeep Bagla tick. Sandeep, welcome to EtherWire podcast. How are you feeling?
I am feeling fantastic, Jyoti. Always feels nice to connect with you.
Lovely.
Thank you for inviting me here.
Okay.
I hope you have a good time.
Okay. That was well rehearsed, guys. Okay, awesome. So, how did you like playing this game after a long time?
I love playing games.
Yeah.
Okay, and the most complex game is life.
Yeah.
And these games are, they have very simple parameters. Life is far more complex, and that is the game I think we should all learn to play well.
Absolutely. I think, Sandeep, I have personally learned this attitude from you. Yeah, and those impressionable nuggets that you would share casually made a profound impact on my journey. So Sandeep की एक आदत है, बड़े खुले दिल के आदमी हैं, आते जाते चलते फिरते वो अपनी wisdom ऐसे छिड़कते रहते हैं. And with such a casual, comfortable, classy approach mixed with a little humor, understanding Sandeep Bagla is probably reading some of the Upanishads that I am trying to translate. Okay, so much wisdom and humor. But before we get there, wanted to understand who shaped your worldview of asset management and who was your early influencers?
So I think, we all read books. We all see, nowadays we consume podcasts, videos, reels. Those have some influence on your mindset. But I think working with people, real life situations, closely observing the reality, I think those are the biggest influences. And I think while good times are great, I think it's the bad times which teach you the most. So I think while one does not wish that times are bad, but I think those are the greatest teachers that we have.
But bad times, Sandeep, you mean the challenging times, times that don't turn out the way you wanted?
Yes, you're right. See, challenges can be both good and bad. So there could be an instance where certain clients are not giving you money, they're not willing to work with you. You take up that challenge, you go and meet them, you work with them, and you crack the client, that gives you a good high. That's also a challenge. But there are challenges which are far bigger than that, in which you cannot really do much, and you feel helpless, you feel the loss of expression, freedom, and that is the time where you are forced to introspect and learn from others, and how you respond. I think that shapes your future life.
Right. Very interesting and very apt said. The understanding of reality or reality check helps of books, interaction with people does shape your worldview. Shaping your worldview, who were your early influences, like I said? Would you like to recall some of them and probably acknowledge today that shaped your worldview of?
I have been fairly heavily influenced by some of my bosses for both good reasons and bad. And
Let's focus on the good part.
so I think, I don't remember the bad parts, I remember the good parts. But I have been fairly influenced by Madhavi Puri Butch, who's now the SEBI chairperson.
Oh, yes.
I have been influenced by people like Alok Agarwal, Amitabh Chaturvedi, B. Prasanna of ICICI.
Oh, yes, marvelous.
So, now I'm working with Utpal Seth and Nipa Seth. They are great influencers and they have profound influence on my life.
Wow. So, what do you think is the common denominator across all these folks that have influenced your life for better? What's one?
I think one, and there are many more people that I have interacted with, and I think the ability to focus on their goals, the clarity of their objectives, the intensity with which they follow their goals, I think without them having to say it, I think that is inspiring and that is something that one can follow upon.
Absolutely. Completely agree with you, because this is also the shade of resilience that we all look for in leaders. What is keeping Sandeep Bagla occupied these days? I know volatile markets, but anything else?
Of course, office work, where most of my time goes. So creating a team, leading a team. For the first time as Trust Group, we are entering into the retail space. That retail space is very vast, it's fascinating, and there's a huge amount of opportunity there. So creating an organizational structure, leading a team which can go into the market and work with investors and distributors and offer them a differentiated product in equities and in fixed income. That is taking the lion's share of my time. However, there are so many other aspects. So I have tried to diversify my interests. I have joined a book club where we are reading currently 40 Rules of Love. I am also joined a salsa class where I am learning how to dance. There are certain personal challenges that I am going through which occupy my time. So it's a completely fulfilled and fulfilling life right now I am leading.
Right. Before we met you, we were having a discussion with a very accomplished life coach cum astrologer. और हमने ये सीखा उससे कि किसकी लाइफ में चैलेंज नहीं है, एंड चैलेंजेस उन्हीं की लाइफ में आते हैं जो प्रॉब्ली उसको झेल सकते हैं.
So, मैं आपको बताता हूँ किसकी लाइफ में चैलेंजेस नहीं. जिन्होंने अपनी आंखें बंद कर रखी हैं, जिनका सेंस ऑफ स्मेल, साइट, ह्यूमर कम हो रखा है, उनकी लाइफ में चैलेंजेस नहीं है.
That's an interesting one. Okay. So do you think you don't have challenges in your life and you're blessed? So probably you need to refer to this. You don't have challenges in life. So that's a very interesting insight, Sandeep. Thank you for that. Knowing you, you're a very calm soul, very unagitated water until unless someone touches you. At least that's my worldview. And I believe in my worldview for a simple reason, because I've worked with you. And someone has to put in efforts to know your colleagues and all, and I've seen the effort that you took in the times of AIG and earlier as well in Reliance, that you truly identified the team, you developed the team, and you interacted with the team with the focus of कि आज कुछ नया सिखाना है, and आप हर मीटिंग में कुछ ना कुछ नया सिखा के जाते थे. Does that journey still continues?
So Jyoti, it is not कि मुझे कुछ किसी को सिखाना है या मुझे कुछ सीखना है. I believe in one thing, कि जो हम सोचते हैं हम वही बोलते हैं और वही करते हैं. This is integrity. So in that case, what I see, and if I see somebody is not seeing that, I try to tell them that this is the way I see life and this is the way we should work. And also at every point we need to be very clear that हम ये काम किसके लिए कर रहे हैं, what is the objective that we are working with. So probably different people learn in different ways. So you have to sort of tell them that this is my worldview, maybe you should agree with me.
Right. So that's interesting. A ladder-like approach of building the conversation, and fantastic. Sandeep, do you meditate?
Yes, I do meditate.
Okay.
I follow the Isha school of yoga, and there's Shambhavi Mahamudra which I do, and I also do Surya Kriya.
Wow.
So both are extremely powerful practices. I am not practicing as much as I should, but I think after this I will do it.
Okay. Send us the video. Tag us. I always ask this question to my guests. Are there any discoveries that you recently experienced that changed your belief or modified your belief?
I would say it's almost every day, Jyoti, that you are learning new things. I think it's a constant process.
You know, there are a lot of new discoveries that your mind prepares you automatically for. And most of the time it's like, जैसे मैं भूत में believe नहीं करती थी, but अब करती हूँ. You know, that dramatic. ऐसा कुछ हुआ है?
मैं बता रहा हूँ आपको ज्योति कि मेरे साथ रोज हो रहा है.
रोज भूत आ रहे हैं?
भूत नहीं आ रहे हैं, but हम भूत को कंट्रोल करने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं.
Okay.
So there have been things in the past which have been traumatic, and I am trying to go to the root cause and sort of get away from those ghosts of the past. So that journey continues, and I'm very sure that very soon I'll be able to step out in the future. From the past.
Right. So your way to discovery is right now on.
Of course.
Okay. Life is about learning and unlearning. And the attitude towards life decides how our exploration will be.
Okay.
Some are shut, some are not shut from a mind perspective. What are the things you are unlearning in life today?
I don't know about unlearning, but I'm learning a lot of things. For example, in my salsa class, person who's teaching us, the last class told us that when you are dancing, salsa is a very interactive form of dancing.
Yeah.
Where the man leads and the woman follows. So he said that in the salsa, you don't dance with the partner, you dance for the partner.
Okay.
And at times, we think we are dancing for ourselves.
Yeah.
So actually, you're not dancing for yourself. You are not even dancing with the partner. You are dancing for the partner. So in life, if you are able to lead your relationships in such a way that you dance for your partner, whoever that partner is, could be your boss, could be your employee, could be your son, could be your mother, could be your lover, could be your friend. But if we actually dance for them, लाइफ में क्या होता है that people हिसाब किताब रखने लगते हैं कि तुमने कितना किया, मैंने तुम्हारे लिए इतना किया, तुमने एक्नॉलेज किया कि नहीं, तुमने उतना किया कि नहीं. हिसाब किताब छोड़ के, if your relationship is important for you, you work for them. But salsa mein you are changing partners all the time.
Yeah.
So different partners move at different speeds. You have to nudge the partner, sometimes gently, sometimes forcefully. Sometimes the partner could be in a different mood. So you should be able to gauge that mood of that person whom you are dancing with. And that is how the magic happens.
Wow, काफी homework किया है, काफी. We'll quickly move to the next session, but before we move, I would like you to fill in some blanks.
Okay.
Fill in the blanks, Sandeep, 10 years back and now is?
So 10 years back, I felt like 25. And 10 years later, which is now, I feel like 30.
Okay. In one sentence, 10 years of Make in India.
We are moving in the right direction. And I think this pace will pick up in the years going forward.
Okay. One, fill in the blanks. Ease of digital payment has led to revolution, but it has also.
So I think it has led to a huge amount of financial inclusion, which even the biggest of pundits could not have predicted 10 years back.
Right. Moving and changing the track to understand the playbook of Sandeep when it comes to global macros. Before we hit the green button, let's start with red. Sandeep, given the current global environment that we are in, which is basically the inflation concerns, oil, dollar pricing, okay, the currency fluctuations, the war at various borders. Okay, what are the biggest red flags you see around that could trigger a recession or a financial uncertainty in coming years?
So I think the biggest red flag that I see is that the central banks globally, especially the G4 countries led by the US Federal Reserve, has been printing money as if there is no tomorrow. So I think that money which has been printed is flooding the financial markets globally and is leading to some overpricing of assets in an unsustainable way. and that is also leading to inflation on the US. There is fiscal side imbalances also, and that I think provides us with the biggest risk of inflation going up, because from 2020 onwards there has been inflation going up, and first the Fed said that it is transitory in nature, then they talked about recession and possible rate cuts, and now the narrative has changed to possibly no rate hike. And it is quite strange that when you want inflation at 2% and your inflation is at between 3 to 3.5%, you are basically hoping that inflation will come down, and you are ignoring the realities, and which I think is the biggest negative for the markets, because risks are piling up. There are geopolitical risks, there are inflation risks, there is a case for overvaluation, there is a tilt towards consumption on borrowed money. So I think these risks are piling up, but for the current situation, I think these are going to get ignored, because the money printing is not stopping at the pace which would be, in my mind, correct and appropriate given the risks. So I think that is the biggest risk. However, that risk is not clear, present and distinct right now, because it's quite possible that this money printing will be here for a long period of time. Until that time, the asset markets will continue to do well.
So much about printing money. What exactly do you see could be the hovering issues with oversupply of dollars or printing of dollars in this format? What exactly is the concern? Printing of dollar is seen as a very positive interpretation of bringing liquidity to the markets, the one school of thought. Okay, the non-asset management, the other side of it. Basically, why it is a worrisome thing when it's about printing dollars? Won't countries do it?
Sure. So see, when you are printing dollars or printing currency, one, you are increasing the base of the currency. So there is quite a possible issue that currency might devalue itself because of oversupply, which is probably the reason why gold or bitcoins or NFTs to a certain extent the prices went up. So people are moving away, trying to diversify into currencies or asset classes which are less subject to devaluation compared to the base currency. Also, typical monetary policy economists would say that too much money will create inflation because there's too much money chasing too few goods. So inflation beyond a point which is not commensurate with your population growth and which is not low and stable can lead to incorrect investment consumption decisions, and it can lead to overpricing of assets, and it can lead to, if it's not controlled, it can lead to huge currency fluctuations, and can lead to price falls. It can lead to instability in financial markets, all of which are not great for stability and growth, and for investors and consumers in general. So I think it has got very, very wide repercussions if the markets feel that the central bankers are not going to be able to control inflation in the going forward. There could be mayhem in the markets in terms of there could be serious dislocations, which we have experienced in the past, since it's not in the recent memory of investors and consumers, and I hope it does not come in the recent future as well. But there could be unintended consequences which we cannot fathom right now.
Fair. No, Sandeep, I think very well explained and laid out. I guess this is one of the indicators which probably did not exist earlier about the printing of currencies by various.
So if I can add to that,
please.
If you remember, we don't remember because we were too small, but in the 80s, inflation was running rampant in the US, and there was a Fed governor called Volcker who had increased interest rates in the US, I think, to 15-20% to control inflation.
Wow.
Now, can you imagine that with this kind of leverage in the corporate world and in the consumers, if interest rates were to go to 15 or 20%, what kind of EMIs one would have to pay? And this is on real impact that could have if inflation were to really shoot to those 80s levels. So if you were to compare that, what kind of money printing was going on in the 80s and what is going on now, those scenarios, while extremely remote, would be very, very dangerous. And I think it's the central bank's prerogative and responsibility to have stable monetary policy which keeps inflation away. And I think that is the first rule and people should not forget the first rule.
The first rule. The second rule is go back and go back to first rule. There are two rules of resilient investing. We covered the red flags, and that's pretty well narrated by you. Let's talk about the green flags. Okay, are there any green shoots that we are seeing ahead of us?
Oh yes, I think India, I'll talk about India now.
Absolutely.
India is growing rapidly on absolute terms and in relative terms to the rest of the world. We have the demographic dividend. I think the average age of an Indian probably is 29 years old now.
Yeah.
For the next 20-25 years, our percentage of population coming into the workforce is going to be fairly high. If they are able to meaningfully employ themselves and generate an income, their incomes will go up, their consumption will go up, their savings will go up, their investments will go up. A lot of new sectors will open up. So for the next 25 years, I think India will keep growing if the conditions are conducive. And I think we have today a period of 7-8 years where equity markets have gone up. You would have seen how SIPs into mutual funds have increased to almost 20,000 crores per month. Now we don't even remember that how whether the FIIs are selling or not. It does not matter to the market. I think our systems in financial markets are extremely robust. Our regulators are fairly evolved and they are proactive, and their policies have led to the kind of volumes that we have never seen across financial markets. I think our payment systems are way ahead compared to the world. I think there is a rising of the resilient Indian spirit going forward for the next 20 years. And I think that is something which is a mega trend. And I don't think that anybody or anything can really come on its way. There could be times when there's a lull, maybe the intensity of the trend could weaken, but the trend is here to stay.
Okay.
And how?
I wish, one of the long only hedge fund manager had once said, who had kept away from Indian markets, if India was listed, I would go long twice. I think that's the narrative you're putting here, which is, I think it's wonderful to hear as well. And objectively, we are speaking about red flags on a global context, but it also, when I heard you, I felt that probably India is a lot more insulated. And when we say it's a worldwide problem, it may not necessarily be India specific problem.
No, so we have realized in the past that we are part of a global economy and we are not that insulated. So the impact of a global tremor will be felt in India also. Probably we could try to put up the defenses and probably we would be less impacted. But the impact will be there definitely, and it will be felt by all of us.
Right, because we are a part of the market, we are a part of a larger market, so effect will be there. But there are some differentiators about India that makes us distinct and probably not a part of the whole market the way we understand, because sometimes your regulator becomes a differentiator. The regulations that they bring with consultative process, with talking to industry participants and leaders like you, I believe, and we have seen this demonstration on amazing regulation that insulated our economy in 2008. I remember you in 2003 speaking about कि कोई मुझे सब प्राइम बेचने आया था और उसको लगा कि मुझे बेच के जाऊंगा, मैं भी बागला हूँ. I remember that 2003 to first pitch of
2003-2004.
Right. So what we are trying to say is that yes, globally there are a lot of headwinds, and some of it will definitely impact Indian markets. One has to look at which way.
I am not painting a gloomy picture.
Yeah, of course.
I am just saying that there are risks which are building. However, the trend could continue for another 2-3 years in terms of the global economy also. Secondly, I think the regulators have become very, very smart, incisive and decisive. Okay, they have realized that earlier the savings of the common man or woman was being mobilized through banking channels. Banks used to give loans and if the industry was not doing well, there would be NPAs and government would have to refund them, fund them again. However, if it comes to the mutual fund, that money is coming straight from the retail investor into funds, into equity and debt funds. It is being productively used. It is being deployed in the industry directly. and the product is extremely liquid. It is mark to market on a daily basis, so there is no valuation gap, and it's extremely transparent. This is a far more efficient way of raising money and utilizing it.
Right.
So I think the rules that are being made in the recent years are towards more efficient ways of capital allocation. And today mutual funds are almost one-fourth of the banking industry.
Right.
Some years back, we could not even compare mutual funds to banking industry. But I think we are on our way, and I hope the day is not very far where we will become equal to the banking industry.
Right. No, I think you picked up a very important point, because we have seen the walkthrough of financialization of assets, and we are not there yet where we want to be. But from the journey that one has covered as a market participant, it's good to see these numbers, that the FPI selling doesn't make it to headlines as much as it used to make it earlier. I think you've highlighted and zoomed in into something very interesting for us, that it's not about being gloomy, it's about being realistic, and this is how the numbers indicate towards realism. And where do India truly stand? And I'm sure the participants like yours and others, of course regulator is always there, I've always seen a part of regulator, which of course you can confirm, is a very consultative approach towards market regulations and policy making, which has come up far more better compared to the times when I had seen working along with SEBI for advocacy and stuff. I now see an intent of regulator to build regulations not from top down, but from building inward and consultatively. How do you have to say about this process, because you have been on the other side as well, seeing the how market participants can work closely with regulators to figure out risk together and stuff like that. Any thoughts on that, the advocacy with regulator?
See, we are a regulated entity. My experience has been that regulators are consultative. They understand the issues that are involved. They do not like it when regulations are used to arbitrage for profits.
Yeah.
Some people, try to find loopholes and exploit them. This kind of enrages and disappoints the regulator, which is not the way. The regulations have to be taken in the spirit and not only the writing or the words. And I think that is very important for us to understand as market participants.
Right.
A regulator will be consultative till the time when we reciprocate and collaborate in the right spirit. That is something that we should not forget.
Yeah, no, I think very well said, and I think that leaves a clue for the market participants as well, especially coming from financial markets. That's a consultative approach is a great way for markets to grow internally. You have it. Besides that, regulation itself keeps you under checks and balances. We have it. I think one of the most robust market regulations, as you rightly mentioned, is there. Besides having an outlook towards global macros, you learned some very top insights from Sandeep. Sandeep, is there anything that you would like to touch that I haven't asked you a question, or have we covered everything?
No, I think, the role of the government, is governance and not really in the industry. And there has been a lot of capex on the government side because private capex is not really picking up to the extent that we would like it to be. I think that my expectation is that eventually the public expenditure on capex will have to come down as a percentage of the GDP. And I do hope that at some point of time, the private capex also picks up. The equity markets are very bullish that growth of India will be robust, but growth of India cannot sustain itself without adequate investment in capacities and in asset creation. So I do hope that that picks up pace soon, and I think inflation expectations could be a dampener going forward. So one should really watch out for that.
Wow, no, that's fantastic. Again, with regards to the coverage on the whole, the approach one needs to take. Sandeep, one of the interesting questions that usually come in such Enigma India series is the perception of India. has really evolved. It is much easier to pitch India than it was before. I'll give an example. First, we used to take India outwardly to bring capital, and we used to find and resistance of all type, right? Last mein khade ho, line mein aao types. But today, when you are going from India, there's a different reception that you get, and I have seen this happening in my career as well in last decade. You go on road shows, you meet institution investors, and you're an institution house yourself, and now getting into retail. What has been, what is your experience?
You are absolutely right. 20 years back, we were on the back foot. Today, I won't say we are on the front foot, but we are on equal footing. And people look at us with respect, with the sense of, admiration. Earlier, probably it was only for our mystical spirits that we were known for mystical sciences. Today, we are showing them the kind of emotional maturity that we have. All the tech companies today are, governed by
Indian leaders. Yeah.
Now, apparently, there is a adage in the US that unless you are an Indian, you cannot lead an American tech company.
Wow.
So we have come to that stage now.
Right.
And more realistically speaking, I think, it is there inherent in Indians. There is a spirit which is indomitable. And I think given the right conditions, the Kundalini will rise. And people will acknowledge that, and people will partner you with that.
Wow.
So I think our time is going to come.
Wow, outstanding. Kundalini, huh?
Apna time aayega.
Apna time aayega. Awesome. I think that was almost an unplugged, and with Sandeep Bagla, amount of fun that we have. Great conversation having you, having you over for this podcast and Enigma India. I think it's a perfect recipe of having a great podcast watched over a weekend.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sandeep, for coming.
Thank you.
And lovely to host you.